We're live.
Thanks,
and
Devin.
YouTube too.
Excellent. How's everybody doing out there? Guys, I'm your host, Nate Zelinsky. Welcome to tonight's show. It is very special. We got an amazing guest with us, Mr. Matt Endsley. How are you, sir?
I'm doing great.
Awesome, man. We had a heck of a day on the water, guys. I don't know if you guys caught this live this morning. We went out bass fishing. We actually had an amazing morning in quite the blizzard. I actually didn't have a camera with us, but you're going to see footage of that tonight. We talked about it. We promised we were going to bring you that footage, and we have it for you. We're going to air it here in just a couple minutes, so we're going to show you that footage. We're excited about that. But again, Nate Zelinsky, we got Matt Endsley, we got Devin Menino behind the scenes. He is bringing us all our questions and obviously running the production. So we have the three of us in studio. And again, today we did a mix of things. We actually on the water this morning. We had a lot of snow, sleet, rain, everything this morning. So we weren't able to pull our cameras out until about 9:30. The bite slowed down a little bit at that time. Got another big pressure system moving in. It's still snowing right now at 6:30 p.m. So we had a lot going on, but we still had a great day, guys. And we're going to show you a lot of those fish catches here in just a second. But you know, Matt, you, when it comes to bass fishing, largemouth, smallmouth, spots, whatever, you're the guy I look up to, right? So you're the senior bass guide here at Tightline Outdoors, guys. This is Tightline Live, here on Bass Pro Shops. Obviously, Bass Pro, heart and soul bass fishing in the country, if the world. And by the way, huge thanks to Bass Pro for giving us this platform to go live and being the official sponsor of the show. And with that being said, bass is a topic. It's one of the number one fish for fishing license sold in the world. It's just that. And you're the angler that we lean to here at Tightline for all of our bass questions, all of our bass entity. If it comes to bass, it's all about you, Matt Endsley. You know what I mean? You have what? We talked about that earlier. You have 50 years of experience of bass angling all across the country, tournaments, guiding, and everything in between.
When you hear bass obsession, that's me.
That's
I've been doing it my whole life. I
Absolutely.
love bass fishing, and I love fishing in foul weather like we did today. Absolutely. I have a lot of success doing that.
And that was crazy. So we were planning this live feed to go out fishing, and we knew that it was going to have some weather. Now, I can be honest with you, I had no idea we were going to have that much snow. They were talking a little bit of flurries, maybe some rain. I called you last night, and I was like, hey, we're going to get some weather. It looks like it's getting worse. Should we still go for it? And you're like, absolutely. And in the heart of the storm, I know the walleyes were biting. I was actually last night up until 2 a.m. guiding a walleye trip. So I knew the walleyes were biting. I knew some of the pike were biting. And I said, hey, what about the bass? And you were like, man, we got to go. So we bucked up. We put on all of our Gore-Tex, put on all the pro qualifier suits from Bass Pro. And we went out. And I'll tell you what, that first light, I could barely even feel my fingers. But I could feel them when that bass was tugging on the end of that rod.
That's right. Early morning and late afternoon is excellent time in the spring to target largemouth bass. And we caught some smallmouth doing it too.
Got largemouth and smallmouth and some good fish with that. So, all right, guys. So, again, I'm your host, Nate Zelinsky. We got Matt Endsley in here. Guys, I want you to get comfortable. We're going to show you a clip here in a second, but this show, again, brought to you by Bass Pro. Huge thanks to Bass Pro and all the followers of Bass Pro. It's also airing on the Bass Pro regional Facebook avenues here in Denver. So, again, huge thanks to Bass Pro Denver for putting it on their page, and then obviously all of our followers here at Tightline Outdoors. So, huge fans of that, as well as YouTube. So, real thankful of that. Again, where you're following us from. And guys, I got to say, real quick, Devin has more of the details of the YouTube page, but we are now starting to put a lot of content on YouTube. So you like this clip, and I always say this, and I joke around, but it's really true. We all have a buddy that maybe isn't quite up to par in fishing, and you don't want to ever feel bad and be like, hey, man, every time we go out, you cause tangles, or, you're hurting our success. Just send them the little YouTube channel and say, hey, Jim, just watch this a little bit, and you can help your friend. Give them the gift of knowledge that helps you catch fish. So either way, we have all those avenues. Devin will give us that Facebook channel. What's the Facebook channel there, Devin?
You mean YouTube?
YouTube, yes.
It's on the Bass Pro YouTube channel.
Perfect.
All these
Bass
videos
Pro.
will be there. We're going to be putting up shorter clips and tips and all kinds of good stuff coming soon.
Absolutely, guys. So a lot of stuff on the YouTube channel of Bass Pro, so just make sure you stay tuned to that. But again, no matter where you're watching from, Tightline Outdoors, all the Bass Pro pages, thank you so much for coming. Now, guys, we're going to throw to this clip here real quick, but we're in studio. So right after we throw to this clip, we want you to get comfortable and bring your questions. Tonight is all about interaction. We have literally an amazing pro angler with us, Matt Endsley. We're here, so we want to talk bass, anything, tips, tactics, any other species. You have questions, guys. We want to answer them tonight. So we're going to throw to a clip from today. From literally 7-8 hours ago when we were on the water, especially right before we went live, if you saw that. So we're going to throw this clip right now. Watch this clip, enjoy yourself, get comfortable, and we come back. We're going to talk about that clip and talk about what we did and answer your question, guys. So get comfortable. Hope you enjoy the shot. Hey guys, it's Nate Zelinsky. You know, I'm actually sitting here in a parking lot getting ready to meet Matt Endsley from Tightline Outdoors to go out and do some springtime bass fishing. It's pre-spawn. The bites are really hot. We set this up. You know, we knew we were going to have some weather, but they said like some light drizzle. Barometric pressure was going to stay pretty flat. I mean, it was looking really good. And every so often, you can't quite trust the weatherman. I wouldn't say it's sideways snow, but it's 45-degree angle fast snow. We'll put it that way. Either way, our barometric pressure's through the roof. We got a lot of snow, a lot of cold, pretty rough conditions. So either way, we're gonna go give it our best. So Matt will be here in a couple minutes, and we'll kind of get started for the day. But this it's gonna shape up to be a day we're going to have to work for it. Big thing today is we're going to slow everything down. Again, high pressure as the storm settled in, just rough conditioning, especially in cold water. You know, when you have storms like this and the water's warmer, it doesn't affect them as much. You have cold water and crazy conditions, especially on fast-moving storms. It's going to be one of those things you got to cater to the fish. So, you know, jerk baits, plastics, but slow everything down, keep it in the front of their face as long as possible, and cater to those fish. But that's the start of our day. We'll see how it unfolds as we go. Hopefully you enjoy us, and hopefully we all learn from it. All right, we're out here. Matt and I actually sat in the parking lot till the snow, I should say, snow, rain, whatever you want to call this, slowed down a little bit. You know, it's not a 45-degree angle now. Now it's I don't know. It's still snowing. It's still raining. But guys, the starting of the day, we're starting off with jerk baits. That's the goal right there, rainbow trout version. And these fish are actually going to be pushing, the larger ones are going to be pushing rainbows kind of up on a steep wall. So we're going to start on a steep rock wall. We're going to be throwing that jerk bait, kind of adding some longer pauses just for the fact that we got this colder weather, this cold front coming through, high pressure. So we're slow working that jerk bait. But I'll tell you what, the fish underneath us aren't feeling the cold quite as much as we are. So they should be pushing those rainbow trout right up there. So that's why we're using that rainbow trout jerk bait. And it should be good. So we're going to start off now and see what they're doing. But Matt is high hopeful with this, and yeah, it should work good. So that's the goal. We're gonna start off with spinning gear. I'm gonna start off with 8-pound fluorocarbon. We'll talk about that later, why we're using that, and that's gonna be the main frame to the starting point. So hopefully it works. Right there at the boat. Man, it followed me all the way up. Nice smallmouth.
Oh, what a fish! Yes, I love it. Smallmouth.
I mean, you can tell when they follow it, and a lot of times, especially in this cold, he just smoked that old rainbow trout jerkbait. But in this cold, these fish will literally follow it because they're just not quite going. They're like, man, I want it, but I don't want it. And all of a sudden, you get that angle change towards the boat, and that fish was all about it with the angle change. Again, a lot of times you think about that, the slightest things, angle changes, longer pauses, short pauses, they get it done. Get him back or get another one. I'll tell you, I don't know how they miss it. I mean, a jerkbait, 3 hooks, just razor blade sharp hooks. That fish bumped it. You know, who knows if he missed it, tapped it with his tail, but he came back, got it that second time. He's all twisted up. You can tell he hit it with that first hook right there, and then turned and ran. And I stuck him, but that fish literally hit the bait twice. Again, it shocks me. How do they miss it? They have some pliers. Missed it the first time, but I got him the second time. I'll tell you what, it's a nice mix this morning of smallmouth and largemouth. I'll tell you, the jerk bait is key. Getting that bait right in the zone, holding it still. You hold it still. Make it easy on the fish, you catch the fish. Simple math. Hey guys, we're in the back of this cove right here. We're out of the winds. We want to talk real quick about the gear we're using. So far, the jerkbait and the creature baits are both catching fish. The jerkbait's doing probably a little bit better than everything. So right there, guys, we got the Bass Pro XPS suspending jerkbait. It's a Laser Eye series. Guys, huge rattle. So in this conditions, you know, darker surface, those loud rattles make it to where the fish know it's there. They get closer, that suspending profile right in their face. It makes it easy on them helps them catch makes it easier for them to take the bait. So helps us catch. And we're also using real lightweight spinning rods. So 7.5 foot rods. You're running what, the Johnny Morris Carbon Light?
Carbon Light, 7.6, medium action.
So long cast, a lot of power on the hook set. I'm running the Abu Garcia Veritas, but very similar rod and reel. So the concept here is long cast, but more importantly, super lightweight as far as the actual weight of the rod, to where when those bass hit it, even a lighter strike, it jumps out at you. You really take note when those fish hit, allowing you to have a speedy hook set on that jerk bait and land more fish at the end of the day. So that's what's catching us now. We're also using some creature baits. So we got the cross shad as well as the river bug. This is going to imitate a lot of stuff, but mainly that early season spring crawfish. It's catching a lot of bass. And as it suns up, as the sun comes out and it gets a little warmer today, that might start working a little better, especially as they slide deeper.
That's right.
So awesome, guys. We're going to get back into it. We're going to go back out in that wind, but that's what we're using so far. I think it's going to continue. I'll tell you what, we messed with that one with the camera, but literally, this largemouth right here, it's a good fish. And this largemouth hit that jerk bait 3 times. That tank right there literally smoked that bait 3 times. And I'm coming out of some water still right there. So we got a little warm water inlet, and that little warm water inlet pulls these fish here because it pulls so much food. It's all about the food. The rainbows are up there, the bait fish are up there, and anytime you get bait, you get these bigger fish. But with that happening, so you can see that water there, I'll show you in a second. With that distilled water right there, it moves that jerk bait. So that jerk bait's moving all over the place, and that big old largemouth right there literally hit his bait 3 times. Missed him the first time, 3rd time's the charm. That is what we're here for. Big bass. I'll tell you what, a lot of guys avoid this weather. They avoid the high pressure. But the fish don't realize it. They're feeding heavy, take advantage.
Spot there. I got it.
Oh, that's a good one.
Lift him into the boat.
I'll tell you what, man. We caught a lot of fish today. All about fine-tuning it, bringing it right in their face. I'll tell you what, that fish right there came on that. We caught them on the jerk bait. We caught them on the plastics, and we're catching them. I'll tell you what, though,
It was a good day.
it's about to snow again for the 2nd time today. I think we call it a day.
Time to go home.
That's right, guys. My name's Nate Zelinsky. We got Matt Endsley here at Tightline Outdoors. Huge thanks to Bass Pro Shops, guys, and a huge thanks to you guys watching. Make sure you stay tuned. We have our live show every Tuesday evening. Got all this stuff on YouTube, guys. Hopefully it helps you catch more fish and build that education. We'll get him back, and we'll guys see you next time. Hey guys, what do you think about that? I'll tell you, Matt, personally, as a person who doesn't do a ton of bass, especially largemouth, I mean, that was a ball, flat out a ball. And, the coolest thing I think is when you go with a pro. And again, I fish for a living, but going with somebody who knows the body of water, you're like, hey man, the rainbows are right there. I just saw boil, cast right there. And you're like, to an inch. I cast right there, second target, boom, you just catch one. So it's fun when you know the bites, you know the patterns, you study the patterns, and it almost becomes predictable. And it is. I mean, that's it. It was a ball. So guys, I hope you enjoyed that. And again, right now, we want to talk to you. Do you have questions, tips? Are you pre-spawn, post-spawn? This guy sitting next to me, Mr. Matt Endsley, has been through it all with bass, largemouth, smallmouth, spots. So you have your questions about that. You want to know about rigs, techniques, gear. Guys, comment in right now as we start going through some of these questions. I know Devin's going to pass us some questions as they're coming in here. But again, just to announce it, we're all about that interaction with you. So you got the questions, bring it to us. And again, huge shout out to Bass Pro. Thank you for giving us this platform. And if you're just joining us, I'm Nate Zelinsky. We got Matt Endsley here. It's all Tightline Live. But Devin, let's start with some questions here.
Matt, what's your favorite pre-spawn bass tactic in shallow water?
So really, the answer to that question depends on the water temperature, the body of the water in the spring. If it's cold, like today, we were fishing water where the water temperature is 50 degrees, you need to throw a bait that stalls or slow moving in the face of the fish, so they can look at it for a few seconds. It pauses, and the jerk bait was the main bait that we were using. This jerk bait right here, in fact, a trout imitation bait, because most of the bodies of water in the West have trout stocked in them. So imitate a trout that's surfacing early morning, as we were doing, and this bait was stalling. You jerk it down, pause it, and the bass would hit it. If you're fishing warmer bodies of water, like back east, where the shallow water may be already, above spawning temperature, particularly in Florida, moving baits, spinner baits, lipless rattle baits, crank baits, anything that you cast out and bring back to you will work quite well in that shallow water. So I use them all. We were catching fish at the same body of water on lipless cranks 2 weeks ago, and catching 20, 27 fish. Water temperature was in the 40s.
Absolutely, that's crazy.
So, it just
that's
depends
fun, covering
on
a lot of water.
Exactly.
Absolutely.
Cover water and get the strikes, find the fish. The other technique that I like to use in shallow water is either a jig. In the case of today, where we're using a Texas rig, where you're casting to a specific type of structure, and it could be a stump, could be a brush pile, could be a limb laying on the bank just barely in the water. When the fish move shallow, they want to stay shallow because the warmer water is shallow. So you want to throw something that's a little slower moving and targets that piece of cover. And this Texas rig here does just that. Now, this particular setup, the tip that I could give most of you, we're using a tungsten weight, so it's smaller profile, 3/16, a Texas rigged hook, and then we use a glass bead. And that
glass bead's huge. It's everything.
Yeah, you probably could hear that. I'll put it up next to the microphone as I jiggle it. It makes a clicking sound. And that sound draws the fish to it, particularly if he's sitting near a piece of cover. He hears it, he comes to look at it, and crayfish will click their claws when they're in a defensive posture.
Bait fish kind of have a ticking sound to their school.
Everything in the water makes noise, and it travels better in water than it does air. So it's just an added incentive. Sometimes the bead is too much, and you take it off if they don't respond to it. But most of the time, I'm using a Texas rig like this with that glass bead.
Now, with that said, so there's a Texas rig. Again, we're getting, guys, today we're using all the tournament series plastics. A lot of different type of creature baits. You're looking like crawdads, looking like shad. The riverbug was probably our most successful. But with that being said, real quick, we had a question earlier about a jig. So when you have a traditional bass jig, what is that, like a jig and pig or whatever you call it? You have that jig versus the Texas rig. What's the difference? When would I throw one versus the other? Can I interchange them, or what's the selling point?
You can. The Texas rig is much more weedless, meaning that wherever you have grass that you're trying to fish a piece of cover, and also there's grass nearby, the Texas rig is going to come through the grass a lot easier than a jig. The jig itself is going to foul when it hits those grass lines, and sometimes it's not as effective. But if you're pitching to shallow cover in springtime pre-spawn fishing, sometimes that jig, particularly in stained or dirty water, can be extremely effective and catches big fish.
Excellent. That's good tips right there. Again, guys, that's what we're all about tonight, bringing you those questions. What else we got here, Devin?
Matt, what is your go-to bait when the fish just simply aren't biting? Do you have a go-to that maybe covers water that you can get a bite to trigger?
So when the fish aren't biting, what's going on is their strike zone has been reduced because they're inactive. And we talked about that on the water earlier today. That strike zone can range from 1 foot to 20 feet, depending on the activity of the fish. And so when that happens, they haven't really stopped biting. You just haven't presented your bait in that narrow strike zone of 1 to 3 feet to get them to take it. So what I like to do is target cover. Something other than just covering water.
Other than a shoreline.
Right. You want to target, it could be a grass bed, a patch of grass in the early pre-spawn stage. It's just emerging. Wood, PVC structure that's been placed in that body of water. Some kind of cover, because they will sit on that cover. They're always there. But when you present a Texas rig or a jig or something that gets in that cover, you're tight to that strike zone now. you're getting within the zone that they'll take the bait.
Yep. And that's a great answer. I think we talked about that a lot. Is with every species, we talk everything. We talk salmon, walleye, but in every show we talk about catering to the fish, and it literally everybody laughs at me, but I always tell yourself if you want to increase your strikes, other than the bait you're using, if you go to the fish and you ask them politely, please fish, take my bait. Again, if you make it easy on them, it works. It almost always works. Again, not saying there's obviously a better color, a better bait. You always are going to have little things that will help you increase your daily catch rate. But more importantly, catering the fish, making it easy on them, putting it right in their face. The angler that can do that the best is going to catch more fish at the end of the day. The guy that is like, yeah, I'm close to the fish, as opposed to the guy that's like, you know what, I know where the fish are sitting. I'm going to put my jerk bait, 4 inches above his nose. The guy that can break it down like that catches more fish at the end of the day.
Yep.
And I think a lot of it's just paying attention to deal. Like a couple of those bigger largemouth you saw in that video, we have a couple other ones that are going to air on YouTube that were not in that video. So guys, we have more footage that we'll be dumping over to the YouTube channel, just to throw that out there. But with that being said, a couple of those fish were coming off that bank wall, the back of that island. So we had shallow water. Geese were standing on it. It had a nice slow taper. You would throw your jerkbait up into a foot of water, get 2 strokes, which puts that bait about 3.5 feet, and every time those fish, it was almost right where the shadow line is, right where you could barely see them. Those fish were right there, and we learned that right away. Hey, right in that line, right in that shadow line is where those fish are. So we took that pattern, put it all over the lake, and it worked every time. So again, paying attention to the details, finding that zone, reproducing that zone, catch you a lot of fish at the end of the day.
What triggers bass? The question's particularly for smallmouth, but let's do generalize in any bass. Is there a secret equation to make them spawn? Is it moon phase? Is there a secret water temp, specifically? What is it?
It's mainly water tip driven and spring of the year. So mainly the water temperature. Here in Colorado, they spawn quite early in the water temperature zone. It's 60 degrees. They'll start to go in beds in shallow water in the back of the bays and the pockets in most of our bodies of water. And then by 65, they're on full-on spawn. Now that's a little cooler than you would think. And most bodies of waters people would say 70, 72 degrees for spawning. That may be true in Florida or some of the southern impoundments back east, but here in Colorado we find that they go on beds much earlier because they have a very narrow window to go on bed and drop their eggs.
Okay. Now, is oxygen, things like that, you look at other fish, like a walleye, for example, temperature is a small phase, but you have parts per million as far as oxygen content. You have moon phase. You have ice-off periods. It's really a gamut of things. Do we ever worry about oxygen levels, or is it pretty much just more temperature than anything?
Not really. It's really temperature driven.
Excellent.
And as that water temperature climbs, like today it was 50, we catch a day or two of sunshine weather, that shallow water will jump up to 55, 56. It'll hit 60 in 2 weeks.
Absolutely.
And they'll be moving to bed.
Especially that mud bottom. Muddy bottom insulates the water column. I think that's another thing people don't think about. Mud bottom holds that heat, and it keeps it warm. So.
Now, would you use that glass beads in other situations, say like a Cinco or other rigs?
If I Texas rig a Cinco, yes. So when the grass gets up really good in some of these bodies of water, you can't get a creature bait to come through the grass very well. It fouls up, even though it is very weedless. So what I'll do is I'll switch to a Cinco or a worm, a straight worm that I can rig the same way with the glass bead and throw it into those grass beds and drag it through, and it's quite successful. That happens right after the spawn. That's a great technique to go with the Cinco. Texas rigged with a glass bead.
Excellent.
Do you like the Texas rig or do you like to wacky rig your Cincos?
The only time I wacky rig a Cinco is when I'm fishing open water, not a lot of structure, when the fish are on a bed, I'll throw a wacky style hook on the bed. That works quite well. You jiggle it a couple times, the worm itself or the Cinco will actually breathe a little bit, and that'll trigger strikes. So yes, I will use a wacky rig from time to time. But once you get grass coming up, it's difficult to get a wacky rig through the grass beds. You could throw it on top of them, but not through them.
All right, now again, I got to ask a question to Matt because this is all ignorance, and I'm sure Devin's with me and everybody else. But when wacky rigging, so I walk around ICAST, right? And again, I'm not a bass fisherman. I bass fish, but I'm not in that game. So When wacky rigging, I've hooked it just through the Senko, through the bait. I've done rubber bands. I've done tape. I've done the wire. There's a million ways to hold your hook. What do you do? When you're wacky rigging something?
I typically just stick it through the plastic bait.
Okay.
There are little rings that you can buy.
There's aisles and aisles at ICAST and at Bass Pro of how you do this, and I literally see forum debates of how we do it. And I was just wondering
and they all help use the worm more than once. That's their theory behind the technique. But I'm lazy. I just stick it through the hook, worm, throw it out there, use another worm after you get your fish.
I like it.
I think we're good on questions at the moment.
Perfect. All right, guys. So the other thing we're going to talk about, I have here on the iPad, a guy just sent literally a paragraph to us. You want to talk about electronics. So this is one thing that we talked about is finding fish. You talk about structure, knowing, brush piles, rock. And with technology, there's so much stuff that comes into the game. And again, today we're using Lowrance. I run Lowrance on my boat. But, nowadays, there's a lot of good stuff out there. The Humminbird stuff's good. The Panoptics by Garmin are taking by storm. So there's a lot of stuff out there. So more so than talking brands, we want to talk about what you're looking at. And I think the use of side scan and side imaging, looking to the side or forward with whatever electronics you personally are using, is really a game changer in this concept of shallow water fishing, looking for spawning sites, looking for spawning beds, looking for trees. You could really cover water, find the right situations, then go back and fish the right opportunities. So you have a day like today. Our window was from 6 a.m. to 9 a.m. where it was hot. We had snow, so we take out the camera gear. We did some stuff with our cell phone footage like you saw. But regardless, we had a limited time to catch fish. So if you went out to the lake and just fished the entire shore, you might only get a quarter of the lake covered or a 0.5% on big bodies of water covered in that strike zone. But if you cruise along with your motor looking at side scan, if hey, the fish are sitting on timber, or they're sitting on wood, or they're sitting on, mud transfers to rock on points. If you have an idea and know what they're looking at, you can now cruise with side scan, go fast, cover, go through the wasted water, through the dead zones, hit that key pocket on the grass, spin around, make your forecast, keep moving. Go to the next spot, make your forecast. So I think utilizing technology is huge. With that, the two things we're going to talk about as your tip for tonight is, number one, on the side imaging. Most everybody has it to where their vessel is in the middle and they're looking out both sides. In this type world, we're working ashore. Put all that side scan on one side. So put all your imagery on one. Pick a left or right, whatever shore you're running on. So now you have that full field of view. So now you can just see better. Even on a 12, 16-inch screen, it still gets narrowed up at times. So look down one side to where you have that nice clear picture. You can break it down. I use a touchscreen, so I'm touching that side imaging and I'm looking where the fish are. Hey, that fish is, from the boat, 24 foot, 62 foot. So I know where to make my cast. I know exactly where they're sitting. The other big thing, I always tend to favor the shore. So I drive my boat in a direction that is not hitting the skag or the keel of my boat. So when I'm looking at that side imaging, if my transducer is dead centered on my boat, glassed in underneath, I'll run either way. But a lot of us are running an external deucer on one side of our large engine. So I always favor it to where that deucer is not going to run into my motor when looking shallow. I'm walleye fishing in deeper water, 20 foot, or even 15 foot. It's going to go underneath my motor and I'm fine. I'm clear. But when I'm looking at shallow flats like we were today, 4 foot, 6 foot, I want to see as far as I can. I don't want the interference of that motor there. So I'm going to pick the side where my deucer has a clear shot and make sure I get that clear range. And I spend a lot of time graphing and just make sure that the moments that I have fishing, the casts that I make, especially in a limited time zone, are absolutely key. And it really helps out. Learn a lake, you find the right keys, and you catch a lot of fish with it.
Side scan, down scan imaging is the single largest advancement in sonar in recent time. It is amazing. I can remember coming out of a body of water I wasn't that familiar with. You learn the body of water. It allows you to pick up the brush piles or the structure or the cover that you don't see because it's off to the side of the boat, and go back and put a GPS coordinate on it. And creating those GPS coordinates is critical.
Build the library.
Sonar. Build that library, because when you come back to that body of water, go fish those structures without driving over top of them.
That's
There'll
huge.
be fish in them, and you'll catch them.
I think more importantly, too, is having that library. I mark stuff so many times that I'll never fish, or I won't fish it for months or years. There's times where the spring where I'm looking for wood, brush piles, but I see a deep rock pile that I'm like, man, come November, those smallmouth are going to be stacked on that. So I mark everything. I write little notes on my GPS. Hey, fall smallmouth. Midsummer ledge, whatever. I make notes to where, a lot of people just overlook it because it's not what they're looking for at this moment. But all of a sudden you forget about it, and it's going to cost you in the end. So I mark everything, make notes, and that way, on the fall comes, I already have every one of my spots pre-laid out, and I'm always one step ahead of the game. So,
hey, Matt, can you talk about color choices for plastics and clean or dirty water?
Yes. So in clear water well, let me first say, green pumpkin is the #1 color in any plastic bait anywhere on the planet. And I think the first company that came out with this was Zoom, Green Pumpkin. But now everybody makes it. These are Bass Pro baits here. So Green Pumpkin or Watermelon is a similar color to it. So those are my top 2 colors. But
just a little confident.
Yeah, just a little confident. In fact, I can't think of another color in my boat nowadays, or in my inventory. So, Green Pumpkin, guys, if you haven't tried it, it looks similar to the bottom of the lakes. Everything that the fish feed on are typically relating to the bottom, and so it's a great color. They like it more than anything else. But as far as clear water versus dirty water, in dirty or muddy water, you want to throw dark baits, something that contrasts with that darker color so the fish can see it. They're not going to see it 10 feet away, but when you get close to them, like we're talking about pitching or throwing a bait close to their strike zone, if they're sitting on a log or a piece of stump or grass bed, they'll be able to see it a little bit better if it's a darker color.
Yeah, like we always say, create a shadow. All dark water usually has that lighter pigment tints to it, as you get chocolate milk and all those colors. And you kind of bait basically to create a shadow. Those fish will see it a lot longer away.
Right. In clear water, you can lighten it up a little bit more of the watermelon colors. I believe some of these are watermelons. This riverbug is a watermelon. And in the warmer months, as the water warms up and they get around grass beds, the watermelon better matches that grass bed color, which everything is in there. I remember pulling an anchor up in the days when we used real anchors, and it was a wad of grass, and it was alive. The wad of grass was crawling with shrimp and crayfish and little minnow. I mean, it was unbelievable what was in that grass bed. So, match the hatch, green pumpkin, and watermelon are my favorite colors.
That's it. I love it. I wish that with all other species I had that confidence to be like, that's the color, that's what we're using. But I'll tell you, it works. I don't ever second guess this, man. I'll tell you what. I mean, I don't think you've ever been off by 6 inches on a cast. You're like, man, cast there's going to be a fish, and I'll cast and I'll reel it in, and I'm like, it wasn't there. He's like, well, you were 9 inches off, and we'll laugh and tell a joke, and then you'll cast right where you told me to cast, and you'll catch one. So either way, confidence catches a lot of fish, guys. And I'll tell you what, this is Matt Endsley. So you go to the Tightline Outdoors website, scroll down, go to the guides, go to the pro staff, go to Matt Endsley. You can contact him directly. So if you have more questions, you want to get on the water with this man to see it firsthand. Again, Matt Endsley, it's on the Tightline Outdoors page. You can also go to Facebook, which is Tightline Outdoors, TIGHTLINE Outdoors. You can get a hold of Matt Endsley for all of your bass fishing needs, questions. Again, the brain that you want to get in and pick is this guy right here. So think about that. Again, I'm your host, Nate Zelinsky. I know Devin's got one more question for us. But, guys, right now, I'm not sure what we're doing next week. We leave it up to you. A lot of people have shows, and they plan these shows months out. And what happens when you plan something a month out? It's not current, and it's not cutting edge. So we literally plan our shows days in advance for whatever's happening. Hot bites, current trends, things like that. So we want to make sure this is the most relevant show and the relevant source of information in the fishing world to you, the people that are taking the time to watch this show. So right now, you struggling with something? Comment. Send us a private message. Nate Zelinsky, Nathan Zelinsky, Devin Menino, Matt Endsley. Send us your messages. Tell us what you want to hear on next week's show. Lake trout, pike, salmon. Devin's going to Lake Michigan. You want to see Devin catch some fish, catch some lake trout?
We actually have,
we can do it.
Marshall Reed, a buddy of ours from northern Michigan. I think he's sitting in about a foot of snow still and probably a bunch of ice, but he's watching. Maybe we could go fishing with him. Ice fishing.
Absolutely. So guys, we got a lot of stuff going on. We can find the bite that you guys want to learn about. So again, comment, tell us what you want to learn about. We'll bring it on the show. We got anything else for everybody, Devin?
might be prying a little bit, Matt, but there's a question. Is there a specific technique that's popular out here that maybe isn't talked about a lot that you can share? Or have you spilled all the beans?
I'll tell you that, again, I don't know if, who wants to take credit for it, but there was a trend that started in your garage that is now blown up. You used to whittle a bait that you would literally, like, hand me in it looked like a casket box. And it was like, you were officially friends with this man when you got one of these baits. Like, I would cast it, like, with baby, because I was so scared I was lose it. But you were literally one of the first ones and the pioneer of the rat bait.
True.
You would make them and sell them. You couldn't make them fast enough. You were literally in your garage slaving away making these rat baits to sell to the general public. And now all the fishing clubs see them. I see in Denver, I see 5 or 6 clubs, guys making this bait, imitating your original rat bait. A lot of companies make your rat bait. And that's why I have to say it's an honor to be a part of a guy that literally started the trend of the rat bait forever ago.
True. The rat bait was a secret for many, many years, but it no longer is. It's commercially available. The one that I made was made out of wood. I made it by hand. It was, it was custom made.
Still awesome.
Each bait was custom made.
Still outfishes all the other ones.
Yeah. And it works great in clear water bodies like we have here in Colorado. So it was probably my secret bait for quite a while. I enjoyed fishing and still do.
Yep. And being a friend of Matt, last time we were in the show with guys, I think more so than the big secret, because we get that a lot, is the ability to pay attention to the details. You drive over a brush pile. Everybody looks at a brush pile. We did it today. Matt was like, man, look at that brush pile. And to me, it was probably an 8-foot by 8-foot pile of brush. I saw a couple things on the grass sticking out of it. But again, it was a pile. And to me, I was like, hey, it's an 8-foot by 8-foot. I can cast that whole thing. As to when you approached it, you were looking at the wind, the temperature, the bait. You knew how to break down an 8-foot section. You made 2 casts on the pile and caught fish. I made 10 casts and didn't catch a fish because I didn't break it down. So the details, I think, are the biggest secret. So many times, you, the angler, me, fisherman, we're so close. We're 90% of the way there, but we struggle because we don't have the last piece of the puzzle to finish it. The details finish the puzzle and catch more fish at the end of the day.
Accuracy in casting is everything, particularly when that strike zone is narrow, like we were talking about. If you don't get that bait within that 1 to 3 foot range, they're not going to touch it. So throwing it in the brush pile or right on the brush pile, if you're 5 or 10 feet away, you don't get bit. So it is important to be accurate on your cast. Another reason for the electronics and the GPS coordinates, that you know where that spot's at when you drive to it. You know exactly how far away and the direction it is. Throw to it, catch fish every
Absolutely.
time.
And accuracy today was brought to you. Matt was throwing the Johnny Morris Carbon Light Signature Series rod 7.6. I was throwing the Abu Garcia Veritas 7-foot. Those spinning rods in tough conditions, cold conditions, allowed us for flawless accuracy and helped us catch fish. Guys, we're wrapping it up for tonight. Again, huge thanks to Bass Pro Shops, guys. We could not have done it without you guys. Again, so huge thanks to Bass Pro for providing the platform and being our presenting partner of this entire show. Also, huge thanks to Bass Pro for allowing us to take over their page and letting us go live from their feed. So if you're a fan of Bass Pro, huge thanks for watching over us, watching this show, asking your questions, guys. We love engaging with you. Matt and I, Devin, we love fishing. That's why we do this. So again, huge thanks for Bass Pro for allowing us to do that. Huge thanks to Bass Pro Denver for letting us go live on their page. And local here, everybody that follows us at Tightline Outdoors, huge thanks to them. And we do say, everybody out there, if you're following this, we do a lot of other side stuff just on the Tightline Outdoors page. So again, you want to get some more of the behind the scenes, a lot of other little footage stuff we do, go to Tightline Outdoors on all the outlets and like us there. Again, I'm your host, Nate Zelinsky. We got Devin Menino behind the camera, and we're joined specially tonight by Mr. Matt Endsley, guys. It was a ball. Thank you so much for watching, and we will see you next week, as we do every week, every Tuesday evening, 6:30 p.m. Mountain Time Zone. Find out in your time zone and tune in.